I like to consider myself a bit of an expert on Italian cinema, but frankly, Ewan's knowledge overshadows mine, something rotten. So Ewan's going to be doing the Q&A. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce everyone to Ewan from our video.
Thank you very much, Gaz. Well, anyway, it's with great pleasure that I welcome back to the stage Mr. Ian McCulloch and Luigi Cozzi. Keep clapping until they get to their seats. I think that's... So, I suppose I'd like to start in the obvious place and ask you, Luigi, how did Contamination come about?
Well, it's a long story and it's a very short story at the same time. It's a short story because I was coming back to Italy from New York, from the Caribbean. I've been there shooting with Joe D'Amato. And I stopped in New York to talk with Canon. I was under contract for Canon to do a kind of Star Crash 2, something like that, but we were discussing the project. And while I was there in New York, I went to the theater and saw Alien, which I had opened recently. And then I liked the picture very much, of course. Then I went back to Italy, and the producer of Joe D'Amato, Ugo Valenti, came back to Italy too, and he phoned me and said, Luigi, there is the MIFED. The MIFED is the film market, very important, which was in Milan every October, and said, let's go there with the project. And I said, we have no project. What do you do? And he said, invent one. And I said, okay, I'll think about it. So overnight I thought up a title, Alien Comes to the Earth, because Alien was a spaceship in space, and I said, Valenti, we can do it on the Earth instead. The spaceship is already arrived, the eggs are here, and we can do that very cheaply in South America and the Caribbean. He wanted to shoot again in the Caribbean. And he said, okay, I'll order a poster, a big poster with this title. He liked the title, and you invent 2 pages of story. And so I wrote 2 pages for him. He had the poster made with the title Aliens Comes to the Earth, and then he flew to Milan to the market and found people interested into the project. And that's how the picture was born, with nothing practically. And then we had to do it, and we did it.
As I understand it, the name Contamination was not your choice. That was actually imposed upon you by the producer.
Yeah, it happened in the market. Ugo Valenti joined with Claudio Mancini. Claudio Mancini was an executive producer. He had worked a lot with Sergio Leone, being an executive producer on Sergio Leone Western. And they joined forces because Valenti had the idea but no money, and Mancini couldn't find some money. No ideas, but some money he could find. And while being there at the market, they discovered that another Italian producer had a picture called Alien Comes to the Earth. So there was a clash of titles for a while, and then Mancini said, okay, let's forget fighting the other producer. I have a project which was, he was trying to do an imitation of the China syndrome called Contamination. And he said, I love this title, we put this title to your movie. It didn't mean anything. But Mancini was bringing the money, so I couldn't say no. And this is how the title was changed. And the American changed it to Alien Contamination, which is better in my opinion. Because contamination, there is no contamination actually in the picture.
I hadn't actually noticed that till you pointed that out. But I believe you said that you wanted to make a sci-fi movie. Sci-fi is kind of where your heart is, and kind of doing Contamination was your sort of way of sort of sneaking in the back door, sort of sci-fi As it were?
It's no, it's when Valenti said to me, "Let's do a science fiction movie," I knew he had no money, so I couldn't do a picture like Star Crash, that kind of movie. I had to propose him something which could be done very cheaply. That's the idea of the eggs. I said, you see Alien? There were posters of Alien in every street in Rome at the time. They have one egg. We have 100 eggs. We are much bigger, much more important,
And you beat aliens to the punch. So
Yeah. The eggs were inflated balloons, just painted green.
And if I can just turn to Ewing, do you have any recollections of how you came to be involved in the project?
Can I first say it's great that so many people stayed for the Q&A. I showed zombie flesh eaters to the seniors of my local golf club in Scotland, and only one person left during it, and it was a man, and he got the biggest laugh and cheer of the evening. But he said he wanted to go to the loo, and in fact only one gentleman seemed to sort of leave during and he apparently knows the film backwards anyway. I sort of did 2 films. I did Zombie Flesh Eaters and a film called Zombie Holocaust. And out of the blue, and almost while I was sort of finishing Zombie Holocaust, I got a call saying, would I like to do a film called, I don't know what it was originally called. I mean, one of the bizarre things about all these Italian films is that they have about 600 different titles. So if you look at my CV, you must think I've been the most active actor that ever existed. But I just knew that they were doing this film, and I don't know it was called Alien 2 or Contaminazione, whatever it was. But the great bonus of it all was that where the locations were going to be, which was we were going to be filming in New York, we were going to be filming in Rome in the studios, and we were going to be filming in Colombia in South America. And that I was going to be paid a reasonable amount of money and have a living allowance, a fairly decent living allowance. And when you're a more or less out-of-work actor, to be offered doing something like that, I'm afraid to say you don't actually care what it is, you just say yes immediately. And this, as well as the other 2 Italian films, I never had any queries whatsoever at all about it. As soon as I was offered it, I said, yes, please sign me up because I want to do it.
Yeah, I have another story behind.
I'll change that. No, the truth.
And then afterwards we can decide which one's the real one. We can take a
I knew him because Italian television just played The Survivors. It has been a big hit in Italian television, so he was popular at the time. But it was proposed by Mancini, with the co-producer, for another reason, a typically Italian reason, because Mancini, Italian producer. They like to have big offices, but they don't have a lot of money. So they get a big office and divide it in 3-4 productions, all working together with the same secretary. Everybody is paying a part of the secretary's salary, But if you go there, you see a big office, a lot of people working, and you imagine that this is a big production. And Mancini was working in such office with other people. They had just made Zombie Flesh Eaters, and they had one room for every production, and Mancini had his office in front of another production, De Angelis production, I think it was. And every morning Mancini heard De Angelis over the phone. Oh, we got 10,000 euros last night, wonderful. Oh, we got 100,000, oh, wonderful. And so when it came the time to say who was the lead of our picture, Mancini said, I have it. It must be the lead of that picture, which is making a lot of money. And so they proposed me Ian, and I like it because of Survivors. I've not seen the Fulci movie, but they said, okay, that's why he stepped in.
In terms of the actual production then, I know that it was a very tight schedule. It was about five weeks of production, which is quite tight even for a low budget film, I believe.
Yeah, it's 5 weeks, including the travels to Colombia and to New York. It was made Italian style, 3 weeks I think in Italy. One in some days in Barranquilla, and on the way back we shot in New York, but the crew was sent home We stayed in New York for 3 days. Me, Valenti, and the cameraman, 5-6 people, no more, to shoot all the American scenes.
I don't know what you think. When I saw this for the first time, which was a Dublin Horror Film Festival, I mean, I actually thought that it was a big budget film. Although the opening sort of credits and just looked absolutely fantastic, and I thought someone had actually spent a huge amount of money. So, I mean, it's the first time I've ever heard that. I mean, I know I wasn't paid very much, so I didn't, I didn't count for very much of that. But I really am surprised. That's the first time I've heard that, you know, not that much money was sort of spent on doing it. I also thought that most of the money came from sort of drug traffickers.
Yes, the Colombian connection.
Colombia.
Yes, sure.
And Luigi's saying about we went from Colombia to New York, and there were all sorts of things that were being packed away with the sort of camera kit. And I think we flew back via Miami, and I mean, I don't speak Italian anyway, but there was the Italian crew were told to say that they didn't speak any English at all if anyone asked them any questions. So I mean, I've always thought when I worked in Italy that I was going to be kidnapped anyway. But when we went to Barranquilla, I don't know if any of you have ever been to Barranquilla. I don't recommend it for a holiday. I mean, it was actually sort of quite a sort of terrifying place. And then when we went out to the sort of coffee plantations, and knowing that this stuff was going to be coming back to Italy with us, you just wondered what on earth. I mean, they could have been putting in those green eggs for all I know, but you just wondered what else was coming back apart from the coffee.
Yeah. Those were drug dealers. They had. It's a fact. They had been convinced to invest in the picture. The picture actually made money in Colombia. They were very happy of that. But you could realize that because when we went to visit their home, they had an helicopter. They had 5 Ferrari, they had many other big cars. And he said, but how many of you here? He said, just 2 brothers. I said, but all those cars? No, we just buy them. We don't know what to do with the money.
And they all had rings with the biggest emeralds you had ever seen in your life. I mean, they were prodigiously rich and crooked, obviously.
So moving aside from the whole drugs issue, were there any? Can you talk about any particular difficulties you faced during production? I mean, I know you sort of. It sounds like you had to compromise quite a bit with regards to what the producer wanted from the film, what you wanted to do with the film yourself.
There were many problems because Claudio Mancini is a very good producer, but he's always been working with realistic movies. So he insisted this picture to be like a James Bond movie, you know. And I said, we are crazy if we are going to try to do a James Bond movie with this stuff, you know, with the eggs exploded and things like that. And so I had many long discussion with Claudio about certain scene and certain scene because he wanted them done in a way, and I did not do them in his way.
And especially in terms of the Cyclops. At the end, you had your own kind of ideas as to how that should be realised. Can you talk a bit about that?
The Cyclops, I've been working with a lot of puppets. I've been a science fiction expert, you know, on cinema. I think I know a lot about that. And Claudio said, no problem. The Cyclops, we do it live size. It will work. It will move. It will eat people. And I said, are you sure? And he said, yes, I found a guy in Milano which for 10,000 euro makes this gigantic thing. And I said, really? Be sure. He was so convinced that I could not say stop because we were going to stop the movie at that point. So I said, okay, let's see what happens. And what happened, the guy came from Milano with the big thing, put the thing on the set. We started to shoot the first scene. It was something with the giant tentacle moving, you know, when one which eats the guy at a certain point. On the the second take, it collapsed, boom, to the ground. It didn't work anymore. Finished. That was the end. And so I said, on a certain point, I was sure that this was going to happen. So I did not worry too much. And I did it in my way. I did the scene in my way. I don't know if you can notice it while watching the picture, but from that moment on, from the moment the scene in the cave starts, there are about 120 different shots. The secretary, the script girl, was crazy. He said, "I finished the numbers," because I kept shooting, and cutting fast, so that you couldn't see that the Cyclops didn't move, actually, or move just a little by a guy behind it. But you don't get that impression. It works. It works because you don't see much of it. There is the light, there are the fumes, and it's a miracle. It's a miracle because the shooting was finished there, with no Cyclops.
And so, Ian, for you on the production, how did you find it working alongside these glowing, pulsating eggs?
Well, I'm not a science fiction fan. I was only told the other day that when I did Survivors, that was actually science fiction, which I had no idea it was, but apparently it is. I just found it, I'm afraid, fairly ridiculous. Now, I mean, but it's sort of meant to be. And I say one of the things, going back to zombie flesh eaters, when I'm showing it to people and talking, the amount of laughter, the fact that they know the script backwards, they join in, they cheer various sort of scenes and things. And I wasn't here at the end. I'm just going on from what Luigi was saying. Was how was the sort of end of the film going here? Was it greeted with laughter or fear, or was it generally amusing, or? I mean, you're all smiling now, so I'm presuming it's your.
Come on, be honest. Come on. You say it down the front.
Yeah.
I think it holds up surprisingly well, though. I mean, the creature at the end.
Well, I'd say you have to make, as Luigi said, you have to make the best out of the situation that you're sort of faced with, and when you're faced with a situation like that, I mean, that's you would think it would be the death of the film because it's the big climax and whatever, and if you can't produce it, then you're in sort of trouble.
There's also a great moment where you slug your leading lady. Do you have any recollections of that sequence?
Do I slap her? I think I slapped her.
You get her right in the face. Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah. And then I think the line after that is just so we understand each other.
Yes, and then she says something about getting it up or whatever.
No, that's early, and that was going to feed into another silly question I was going to ask.
This is Luigi's script, so I don't know. Yes, Louise was a very, I don't know whether you're coming to that as well. Louise is a very, very distinguished Canadian actress, but who was generally sort of rather lost in sort of doing it. I don't think it was actually quite her cup of tea, and I don't think she really felt that she sort of fitted in with whatever was going on. But I didn't hit her for that reason. I mean, it was. It was. And I also suffered as well, I have to say. I mean, in most of the things I do before I got fatter and lost my hair, I was always playing the hero. And when we were in Barranquilla, I just bought some presents for my wife in a jeweler's shop. And I put them in my hotel room, and then when I went back to my hotel room, which I knew I'd locked, it was open. So I went in and looked around, and obviously someone had been in there, and then suddenly the wardrobe opened, and a man came out. And I said in Italian, "What you're doing?" And he said something to me in Spanish, I don't know what it was. So I pulled him out of the room, and we stood in the hallway outside, just facing each other. And I have to say, this man was about 4'6" tall. And I say, I normally play heroes and think that I'm tough, and I've been in the army and all sorts of things. And I didn't know what to do. And I noticed that he was standing with his legs apart. So I kicked him in the balls as hard as I could. And he just stood there. So I screamed. I really did scream. Police, polizia, or whatever it was. And he then ran away. And I chased him like a hero, chased him down to the kitchen. All the staff were sort of looking sort of odd. No one did anything to stop him. And then he turned around. He picked up a knife, a carving knife. I looked for a chair to hit him, or just thinking that could I do the same as you say I did to Louise. And there wasn't a chair, there wasn't an implement that I could pick up. So I grappled with this man, and I'll show you, anyone who wants to see the scars. I have the scars on my wrist where I sort of fought off this dwarf, who then ran into the cellar of the hotel where he threw away everything that he'd sort of stolen from my room. And I went to the police station, and they said, "Is this the man?" And I said yes, although I'm now quite sure that it was the wrong bloke that I had. And whoever it was, I was told, got 7 years in prison for sort of doing this. And to be stuck for 7 years in a Colombian prison is not the best. Now, I don't know where this question started, but that's where I'm going to finish.
It went the way I was kind of hoping it would, so. So that's your only anecdote about a knife-wielding midget?
In that film, yes.
Okay. I was going to ask quickly. I mean, Contamination is kind of one part of your sort of Italian horror trilogy, if you like. How did that experience compare with the experience of doing Zombie Holocaust, Zombie Flesh Eaters?
Okay. Well, I'm not saying this because he's sitting next to me, but this chap really is the nicest bloke I've ever worked with in Italy. I mean, he could not have been sort of kinder, more appreciative, and more understanding of all the things that he had to go through. And as I think you're appreciating here tonight, I mean, he really is the most agreeable person that you could ever sort of meet and have to sort of work with. My basic thing is that, I mean, the rest were all about zombies and could not have been sort of sillier. And Luigi says this himself, is that you know, there's a lot of sort of B film sort of style in this, B film sort of dialogue, allied with all this sort of science fiction stuff. I mean, didn't take it with a pinch of salt. I mean, God knows what I took it with. But to me, as I wanted to do all these things, not because I wanted to follow in the footsteps of Clint Eastwood, because I'd already done that in Where Eagles Dare. He's much taller than me as well, and has more hair, and seems to get on a lot better with girls than I do as well. Don't like Clint Eastwood.
Save this for tomorrow's evening.
The opportunities were sort of fantastic, and I say this one just to start off, you know, in Colombia and South America, and then go to New York and have a great time there, and then sort of finish it all off or whatever, with the sort of dubbing and all the rest of it in Rome. Were just opportunities that you can't turn down, because Luigi and the crew, I mean, just treat you like an absolute prince, and you know, nothing is too much that they can do to sort of make life easier for you. So in every opportunity, I mean, my Italian career finished just as suddenly as it began, but I mean, that was a real big, I knew it was going to happen, but it was a real big sorrow, and it was probably the happiest professional year of my life, acting as an actor.
I want to open up the questions to the audience shortly, but just sort of to finish from my questions, really, I just wanted to ask about the reception that the film got and the release, how Contamination did. I understand when it was released in Italy, it coincided with a tragic incident in Bologna. Is that correct?
Yes, in Italy it was a big problem because it was released. It opened in Bologna. The very day they had a bomb at the station killing 100 people, you know, so every movie died that week. And elsewhere it was bought by many companies, did not make a lot of money, but started being released here, there, and went on, still on. You know, there are still people buying it and re-releasing it after 30 years, more than 30 years, you know. So it has life of its sound in a certain way. Not many pictures resist 30 years and still sell, you know.
Has it made a lot of money? I mean, how much? What sort of
Over
figures do these films have? I mean,
not
millions of dollars, or
no, because it did not have major distribution. To make $millions of dollars, you need a major distribution. In America, it had Canon, made money with Canon, but not much, you know, because when you pay a picture cheap, you don't invest too much in promotion. It's easy to get your money back plus a percentage. But over the years, it's been making, and still is making.
Obviously, one of the reasons we're showing Contamination here is because it's part of the 30-year anniversary since the Video Recordings Act in the UK, and obviously Contamination was one of the films which ended up on the list. Were you bemused at the kind of fate that befell it in the UK, being prosecuted as a video nasty?
Well, what are video nasties? You're talking about that?
Yeah. Video nasties. Yeah.
I was really I heard that the beginning of the 90s, and I was quite surprised because, in my opinion, this is a fantasy movie, and a fantasy movie cannot be nasty movie. You know, it's a nasty movie. Is a movie with violence. It's a movie realistic, which can give eventually something to a crazy guy. You know, a crazy idea. I don't think that, but maybe. But a fantasy, you know, it's they play Alien with a thing coming out of your stomach, and you see it with the blood, things like that, and then the stupid thing with eggs, you know, absolutely, eggs, people exploding, you know, in the streets. That cannot happen, you know. That's pure fantasy. It's impossible. I don't understand why this can be. Also, the bloody scene. If you're talking about the bloody sequence, mostly the first one, I made it as a kind of ballet. It's all slow motion, like the Wild Bunch. You know, I did not look for nasty effort. I looked for a graphic effort, and it's there. It's still there. I saw it before. It's still at that thing. It's not disgusting. It's shocking, but it's not disgusting, and it's not really violent, you know, because that is impossible. And so I did not really understand why they put my picture among the list in England and in Germany, in the list of the nasty movie.
And now it's actually being released uncut with a 15 of all things. So
yeah. I still think that's nothing to do with the nasty thing. You know, it's a fantasy movie. You even don't understand. There is a lot of humor in it. When I place a egg near the shower and I do the Hitchcock scene from Psycho with the egg, I'm a crazy director, of course, but there is humor in it. You know, I'm doing a crazy thing, and if you believe in it, okay, it's a miracle. But it's funny, you know, it's for fun. Most of the picture is a tribute to classic. The beginning with the ship is the beginning from them. The picture about giant ants. Instead of the ship, they have a girl. Instead of a helicopter, they have a police car following the girl. They talking with the plane over, giving information. It's the same sequence transformed. The sequence on the ship is a tribute to H-Man, a Japanese movie, when they go to a phantom ship and find all the people on board destroyed like that by the H-Man. And so you have the Quatermass 2, with the gas mask, with the factory. You have the eggs, like the pots in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It's a long list of tributes to classic I love. And I try to, not to imitate, to do in my own way certain things. Not a video nasty, I think.
And so to pick up on the video nasty theme again, Ian, obviously the three Italian films that you did all ended up on the video nasties list. Is there a coincidence there, do you think, or?
Well, I honestly thought they were all just rather silly horror films, just like Hammer House of Horrors, except they were done in an Italian style, which, I mean, starting with Fulci's, are sort of more gory and, you know, blood gushes everywhere. But, I mean, it's a story I've told before. My wife's uncle, he's dead now, he used to sit in the House of Lords. He was a man called Viscount Ingleby. And I met him just after all this had started to take place in London, and he didn't look very happy. And I said, well, what's the matter, Martin? And he said, I've got to do something really, really horrid. And I said, well, what's that? And he said, well, the Metropolitan Police have got together a selection of sort of videos of films which they want us to sort of help them ban. And I said, oh, well, that's good, because you'll see me, because I'm in 3 of them. and he looked at me with, you know, disgust, but his only comment was, Ian, How could you? Well, I've already told you I did it for the money. But I mean, to me, I mean, as Luigi said, I mean, they're full of fun, and I could not, for the life of me, understand why any of them were banned. My wife walked out after 5 minutes of Zombie Flesh Eaters. She's never seen Zombie Holocaust. She's never seen Contamination. I've never seen Zombie Holocaust. But it's obviously other people's sort of cup of tea and not mine. But you know, they exist, and we're still. Luigi's talking about how can a film like these have a life, you know, beyond some real classics. And the reason is, of course, that they became video nasties and became iconic in their own way, and despite whatever attributes they may have, but big other classics, whatever they are, because they were banned. And I wouldn't have been off to lots of conventions in America. I wouldn't be here today. I mean, it's not because of Survivors that I'm here today or anything I've ever done on stage. It's because of, you know, one of these banned Italian films. So I'm, you know, overjoyed that A, I did them in the first place, and B, that they've had this life. And thank God for my wife's uncle and all the rest of them for banning them in the first place.
I think the time has come now to open the floor to questions from the audience. So does anybody have a question that they would like to throw out? Yes, sir, at the back.
I was just wondering about the soundtrack. I mean, it's brilliant music by Goblin with so many Italian films they did. I was wondering, were they always on board to do the music, and or was there anyone else at any point? And also, how much influence did you have on the music, or was it that they were just left to their own devices to make it up?
No, they were always on board because Mancini knew of my involvement with Dario Argento, you know, and he said, "Oh, you will get the Goblin like Dario does," you know. So it was set since the beginning, and I didn't work much with them because they were very busy in that period, so couldn't work strongly with them. I did work on the editing of the music. They just recorded by themselves, and then I and Baragli, the editor, who is the editor Sergio Leone, is an excellent editor. There is a very good editing in this picture. And we worked editing the music, which is not so easy as people may think sometimes.
Next question, yes.
Could you talk a little bit about the dubbing process? Since you've already given performances on the day as performers, and I assume that there's no version of the picture that actually includes any location dialogue, what is the process of actually re-recording the entire film? And
that was at the time. At the time, no Italian picture was with direct sound. All dubbed. All of them were dubbed later on, usually in Rome or in New York. It depended on the money at disposal of the production. And this is part of the thing. No direct sound at the time.
I mean, the Italians knew very clearly, which the British film industry didn't seem to, that the bulk of the people who were going to be watching this film in the future wouldn't speak Italian. So it didn't really matter what anyone was sort of saying on location. So that's why there wasn't any sound. And you know, you're then dubbed into Greek or Italian or Japanese, because most of these Italian films, I think, were pre-sold, weren't they, before they were made? I mean, for huge amounts of money. So it didn't really matter to them what the sound was going to be. And from an actor's point of view, the bonus was that, you know, you could make as many mistakes and stumblings as it didn't really matter. It probably added to the character. And you knew that the more mistakes you made, the longer you were going to have in the sort of dubbing studios when you were called back to Rome, which, I mean, quite a lot of actors, I think, do keep mistake after mistake after mistake, and they just extend their contracts a little bit. For that film, anyway.
Another question from the audience? Yes.
I was just wondering about the fact, Luigi, that you have a kind of pseudonym. So at the beginning in the credits, it doesn't say Luigi Cozzi, it says Luis Coates, is that right? And why you have a pseudonym as your credit at the beginning of the film?
It's not me. It's not me. It's during the production of Star Crash. At a certain point, the producer came to me and said, "Luigi, American International Pictures says a picture like this cannot be directed by an Italian. So, or you give me an American pen name, pseudonym, I select one for you. What do you prefer? And I said, well, I'll be Lewis Coates. And that's it, because Star Crash made money. So the producer of Contamination said, okay, let's put the name of the guy who did Star Crash. Everybody knew it was me. But only except the producers, they insisted with that.
And my real name isn't Ian McCulloch. It's Giovanni Maccolucci.
It came off the tongue very easily, that one, didn't it? Any more questions from the audience? Sir.
I've got a question for Ian. It's just about the video nasties again. Were you ever, when the whole thing broke, the video nasties panic, were you ever worried, scared for your own, well, not well-being, but because so many people got into hot water, I was wondering, were you embarrassed, or did you try to keep a low profile?
I mean, it never sort of reached me at all, other than this sort of incident with my sort of wife's uncle. I mean, I was just absolutely gobsmacked that, especially this film, which is, Luigi says, is just sort of fantasy. I mean, how this is going to affect anybody and sort of deprave them is just beyond my sort of ken. So I just presumed what it meant was that these films would, at the time, would have no future at all. They wouldn't be shown, they wouldn't be bought, and that was the end of it. Which is why, as I say, it's just so remarkable. Zombie Flesh was made in 1980. 34 years later, 34. 34 years later, still, people are still sort of coming to seeing it in cinemas, buying them in droves. The Blu-ray version of Zombie Flesh just came out. There's talk today of sort of a Blu-ray version of Contamination. There's talk of a Blu-ray version of Zombie Holocaust. And it's
not why I'm here.
It's because of that, and so I mean I'm just grateful for it, and I suppose everyone connected with the film who makes money out of it or gets some sort of credit out of it are just sort of only too grateful that it actually happened.
Yeah, I say that this picture works not today, not because of the video nasty thing, because at the same time that we show it here, some months ago it was shown in Spain, it was shown in Brazil, it was shown in Mexico City, where it was never banned. It seems the audience have fun. I don't say they like, I say they have fun watching the picture everywhere, aside from the video nasty classification,
We've got time for one more question, if anyone's got a really good question to round us out. Here we go, make it good, make it count.
Well, I'm just wondering if there might be any further collaboration between you two on the horizon.
I was hoping you'd ask a question about my wig, but well, I farm in southwest Scotland, and Luigi is sort of based in Rome. Although he is making a film at the moment, as I checked up on the internet before I came. He's making a film with a. I did a film. You probably know this anyway. I mean, I did a film for my local community centre the other day. It's called The Curse of Aggie Fishbone, and the oldest person in it, including the director, was 14 years old, and it was filmed with a camera about that size. And I said the things that you can now do. I mean, God knows what equipment we had when we were sort of doing Contamination, with the lighting and the sound, even though there wasn't sort of dialogue. It involves so many people lugging so many things around, and the fact that now you can take something the size of the palm of your hand and get the most wonderful pictures, the most wonderful movement, the most wonderful sort of colours and sound as well, just changes absolutely everything. So I mean, what I asked, Luigi is making a film. It's called
Blood on Melius Moon.
But I've asked him what I would like him to do is to write a film, which I would like to be in, but to set it in an American convention center for a weekend of horror films, because I don't know if any of you have been to them, but they are gruesome. They are full of some very, very strange people. They show some very, very, very strange films. I mean, they're fun to do, but they're sort of very strange films. And the whole of the convention center, which is huge, is full of people who have dressed up as the heroes, heroines, villains, ogres, nasties of whatever films has been their favourites. And I thought that it would make a delightful little sort of horror film, which wouldn't be banned, and would give me a nice part.
Right, I think it's safe to say I think we'd all like to see that.
I agree with you. I may write that. It's a good idea.
That's a little teaser to end us with. So I think we all now have a date with a train. So can we all have a round of applause, please?
Thank you very much. Thank you.